right through Clover, and proudly we'll exclaim, Mr. and Mrs. is the name.
The Brighter Broadcasting Service, station 3KZ Melbourne, presents a variety quiz with a new and unusual twist. We cross to studio number 2 to Norman Banks with Mr. and Mrs.
Thank you very much indeed, and howdy do, ladies and gentlemen. Many people today are faced with domestic problems caused by quite a variety of different reasons. Some are due to the unnatural conditions which follow every war. Others are brought about by such things as lack of consideration, childless marriages, the interference of relations, gambling, alcohol, and so on. But every poison has its antidote, and we plan to present everyday domestic situations and then invite members of the audience to debate on their possible solutions. For our first problem, we called on Mr. and Mrs. Lamington. Mr. Lamington, after a day's work, has reached home first. He wonders what time he will have dinner, for as yet there is no sign of Mrs. Lamington making an appearance. He starts to peel a few potatoes, the knife slips, and he cuts his finger.
Oh, dash the blithering thing. Gosh, look at that. Oh, gosh, oh, look at it. I'm going to faint.
And all this doesn't put Mr. Lamington in the best of humor to greet his wife as she comes brightly through the door.
Why, darling, what's the matter? Oh, you poor dear, you've cut your poor little finger.
It's not that. It's my big finger, and that makes it worse.
I'll get a bandage. I'm so sorry I'm late.
Never mind the bandage. You stand there and listen to me, my lady. I'm not going to put up with this any longer.
Why, Ted, such a tone. Put up with what?
I'm telling you again, I don't like you working. A man expects to come home and find his little lady in an apron serving up a beautifully cooked meal, instead of walking into the house in her fur coat and dashing to the kitchen drawer for a tin opener.
Why, Ted?
Don't why Ted me. You might be getting a lot of fun out of your rotten career, but you can't say I'm getting much fun out of it. I demand now you chuck the whole thing
And waste my university education? All those years of study?
Yes. A woman's career is in the home.
Oh, we've been through all this before. It's only because you've cut your finger that you're talking like this.
It's not because I've cut my blithering finger with a blithering knife while I was peeling the blithering spuds.
You can just stop that Billy Hughes talk and apologize for being so rude.
Now listen to me. If you expect an apology from me, you're going to wait an eternity.
Well, I'm not going to put up with it. I'll leave home. I'll go right away. I can support myself.
That's right. You can support yourself. Fancy a woman, a married woman who has a husband to look after. Fancy a woman like that working in a chemist shop.
It's interesting work. And doesn't it bring in extra money? Haven't I got an interest in the shop? Didn't I put down a lot of my father's money for a share in the profits?
All right. You're a chemist. Well, let's see how good you are with first aid. Fix this finger.
Yeah, hold it out. I've got some iodine.
Oh!
Stop that, you baby.
Fancy putting that stuff on neat. A lot you know.
I only know I'm going to keep on with my career. I love it. It's my whole life. And I can work marriage in with it.
Oh, you can you? Well, tell me this. What about the years to come? Are you going to have 6 or 7 kids all playing around a chemist shop, drinking perfume and eating rat poison? Are you going to have 8 or 9 children rubbing each other's faces with corn cure and spilling dandruff lotion all over the counter?
6 or 7 or 8 or 9 children. Are you crazy? You know that's impossible.
It isn't impossible at all. Lots of people have more.
Ted, I'm afraid we'll never see eye to eye on this. Whatever are we going to do? Whatever are we going to do?
Well, I wonder what we can do to prevent this particular marriage from going on the rocks. While I'm taking the microphone into the audience, I'd like you to consider, first, should the wife sacrifice her home, children, husband's comfort for a career? Now, that's a rather important question, and we'll come to Mrs. Kenny first and ask what you think the lady is entitled to do in a case like that. Do you think her husband's unreasonable?
No, I don't. I think her place is in the home and to look after her husband. But if they must go to work, perhaps if they're young and perhaps trying to save up to buy a home, well, they should board or live in a room, but not have to come home and get meals.
Do you think it was unfair of him to come home after a heavy day's work and have to get his own meal?
I think it is unfair for him.
Well, then, in a case like that, do you think that the wife should give up her chemist job as she had?
Well, why not board until they save up enough, perhaps, to buy their own home and be settled comfortably?
That might be a very practical solution to the problem. Now, Mrs. Crosby, what is your idea? Do you think the lady there in the case that we've just heard was entitled to come home late, although she had a job, to her husband who'd been working so hard all day?
Well, I think I quite agree that he was in the right.
He was in the right.
It just depends how much money they had.
They were earning.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes much difference in the final count? Don't you think maybe the husband is entitled to a meal after a day's work?
Oh, yes.
Well, then, what would you suggest? Do you think the woman should give up her job?
Well, perhaps he could work part-time.
He could work part-time. I suppose then you'd be suggesting that he should work half-time and probably have the family too. Is that the idea?
That's an idea, isn't it?
Well, I don't know about that. We'll find out over here from Mr. Collier. Mr. Collier, you've heard the statement made by both people. You've heard that argument, I suppose, has been on in many homes around your place, hasn't it?
Quite true.
Yes. Does your wife go to work?
No, she does not. I don't
Did she ever
approve.
want to go to work?
Yes,
And what did you do about it?
definitely stopped her.
How did you stop her?
Well, I maintain that one in the house should work, not two.
Yes.
And otherwise it keeps another single person out of a job.
Well, now, how did you go about stopping the wife from going to work? That's the interesting
Well,
part.
I just simply said, one boss in this house.
And I'm the one.
Yes.
And that worked?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's fine. That's an idea. Mind you, he looked a bit feeble, that husband, I thought, didn't you? A bit weak. Well, now, Mrs. Skull. Mrs. Skull, have you ever had a career? Did you have a career of your own?
No, I haven't had a career.
You haven't.
I thought of all that before I was married. I think a woman, she marries and she's got to feed the brute.
She's got to feed the brute.
Yes.
Of course, you might have to feed her a few other little brutes, mightn't you?
Yes, that's quite right too. So
And don't you
people
think that is the
that all out
natural...
before they get married. If they can't do their work, well, they should get somebody else to do it.
I think that's a very practical solution to the problem. In other words, they shouldn't have been married in the first place without deciding.
No, that's quite right.
Mr. Skull, your wife, you've known her for some time, I take it.
Well, she's quite the most charming wife I've ever had.
And I think that's very delightful, and I take it you've only had one wife.
No, she said she had no career, but at one time she went to the J.C. Williamson when she was quite young.
You were married then?
Before I knew her.
Ah, yes.
And I've never stopped her going again. But I believe J.C. Williamson are rather full up these days. A lot of radio announcers get along to them.
Oh, yes.
So that's the end.
Oh, that's the finish.
That is the
That's
finish.
the finish. Oh, well, by the way, have you a family?
Yes, but a previous family by my previous wife.
Oh, I see. Well, thank you very much indeed. These things come out, don't they? Now, are you married, Mr. Pern?
No.
Now, you're a single man.
Yes.
Have you any desire to be married?
Yes.
You have. Have you a girlfriend?
No.
You haven't a girlfriend at all. Is he telling the truth, Mr. Barr?
Oh, I think so.
You think so? You don't know for certain. Well, tell me, if you were married, would you like your wife to have a career and come home late and you have to peel the potatoes and cut your finger and all that sort of thing?
No, I think if she'd gone through the study that's necessary for a career, we could both come to some agreement where she wouldn't have to be tied down to endless domesticity if she didn't like it.
Oh, you'd feel that way about it?
I think we could meet each other halfway.
Yes, I feel quite certain the way you've put it, you could meet everybody halfway. Well, all the very best, and thank you very much. Collect your ticket over there. That was a very interesting solution to the problem. I think what the young gentleman... Mind you, he's not married yet, are you? No. He's not married yet. He might change his tune when he gets married and has his wife coming home late for dinner. Well, now, here's a family of a different order. The wife is not a career woman. She's a good housewife, a good mother, you've only got to look at her, and a beautiful cook with everything spick and span and neat and tidy. So what's the trouble? Well, let's find out.
Pass the sugar, John.
Yeah? What? Oh, the sugar. Say, what's the idea? It's right there in front of your puss.
Well, that's a nice way to talk to your wife. You come home of an evening and sit behind a newspaper. You don't even see me, or look as though you're taking an interest in the meal. At breakfast, it's the same thing all over again. Only at breakfast, it's the morning paper.
Oh, all right. Pull your head in.
That's lovely, that is. Lovely. Charles Boyer wouldn't say that.
Charles who?
Charles Boyer.
Who's that?
Well, if you went to the pictures occasionally, instead of being a stick in the mud, you'd know.
Oh, I don't want to know a man like that. His name don't sound natural.
Oh, Charles Boyer.
What?
A gentleman to his fingertips. Polished, gallant. Oh, and so considerate. When his screen wife goes to sit at the table, he rushes up and places a chair at her disposal.
He places a chair at her what?
Her disposal. Oh, he's wonderful.
Don't sound too good to me.
And across the table at breakfast, he passes the sugar with a smile, without his wife asking for it. And instead of reading a newspaper, He looks into her eyes and tells her how much he loves her.
Just a minute. How long have they been married?
Oh, that doesn't matter. He's always the same. Oh, he's never any different. I'm crazy about him.
You're what?
I'm crazy about him.
This Boyer bloke.
He's not a Boyer bloke. He's Charles Boyer.
Are you in love with me, or are you in love with Mr. Boyer?
Well, the truth is, I'm in love with him.
So that's it. A bit fickle, aren't you? A week ago, you were in love with Edward G. Robinson. Say, don't I earn enough to keep us all comfortable? Haven't we got our own home? Didn't I bring you some chocolates on your birthday?
And didn't you forget to bring me anything on our wedding anniversary?
Oh, a man forgets.
Well, Charles Boyer wouldn't forget.
Look, don't mention that man's name in this house again. Why do you have to upset me just as I'm going off to a hard day's toil? What's the Boyer coot got I haven't got? Just tell me that.
Are you serious? Charles Boyer. Why, he's got creases in his pants. He lights a cigarette as though it was a tender, loving friend and he was afraid to hurt it.
I'd like to know where he gets his cigarette papers.
Well, Charles Boyer wouldn't roll his own. Nothing so vulgar. And his collars and ties, his clothes. Oh, it's no good, John. I can't go on.
Oh, gosh, what the heck are we gonna do?
Well, there's another young couple with a problem, a wife who constantly falls in love with film stars, a husband who probably has a fair share of faults, too. Now, what's to be done about them? Well, let's go to the studio audience and find out from this lady. Are you married?
Yes.
Oh, how lovely. Do you go to the pictures?
Yes.
Do you like Charles Boyer?
No.
You don't like him?
No.
But you have film stars whom you really like?
Yes.
Do you ever come home and feel, oh, I wish my husband were like him?
No, I'm satisfied with
You're
what I
quite
got.
happy. Right, that's fine, that's marvellous. But just tell me one thing. Does your husband ever use expressions like puss or pull your head in or anything like that?
No, I might.
You do? Well, your husband doesn't mind.
No.
But he never uses those expressions.
No.
Well, do you think it's wrong for women to come home from the pictures, as sometimes they do, I'm told, just like this lady here, and look at their husbands and think
I
he's
like
plain...
mine best when I come home from the picture.
You do?
Yes. I think I'm lucky.
He puts the ideas into your head, and I suppose when you are kissing him or he's kissing you, you think it might be Charles Boyer or something like that.
No.
Well, you get a lot of fun out of life and from the pictures.
Oh, yes, I
But
love
it doesn't destroy or distort your vision of life.
No.
You keep everything, both feet on terra firma.
Yes.
That's fine. Very good and well done. Now, here's a gentleman who looks as though he might put his head in occasionally. What's your name again, please?
Baker.
Pop Baker. Mr. Baker, I'd like to ask you, what do you think of men who go home and their wife is a nice, clean, tidy wife who does everything properly, she goes to pictures a bit, but what do you think of the man who tells her to, pull her head in?
Well, I think she ought to turn around and tell him to do the same.
Yeah, and you think that might solve the problem?
Yes.
You don't think it would lead to further words?
No,
You don't?
evens the field.
You think so?
Yeah.
What's good for Jill is good for Jack, sort of.
Yeah,
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. All right. How do you do? You are Mrs. Baker.
Yes.
Mrs. Baker, does your husband ever say things like that?
No, he does not.
He doesn't. Has he ever tried to?
No.
He wouldn't want to.
No.
Do you think the use of expressions like that in the home does kill the romance of married life?
I think so.
You think so? Have you ever seen, had experience of that sort of thing?
No.
You haven't.
No.
But you definitely think that man, this particular unfortunate husband over here, ought to curb that bad tendency of using rude
I
expressions. You think he should be more interested?
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Duncan, you're married?
No.
You're not married?
No.
The lady on your left?
No. What about the lady on my left?
Is she with you?
Yes.
Yes. Well, there. Tell me, Mr. Duncan, do you think it'll be long now?
I wouldn't like to say.
You wouldn't like to say. Well, let me ask you the question. You're not engaged, are you?
No.
But you have. Do you? Well, I'll ask the lady herself. What is your name, please? You left your particulars somewhere else. I haven't got your name, have I? What is it, please?
Martin.
Miss Martin?
Yes.
Miss Martin, what do you think of a man who comes home and talks about, uses those rude expressions, but then finds his wife sort of comparing him with film stars? Do you think it's wrong?
Oh, I don't think she should.
You don't think she should?
No.
Now, for instance, if you were to come home, just hypothetical case, if you were to come home to Gary Duncan over here, would you start comparing him with Charles Boyer and saying, well, Charles has creases in his trousers and, lights a cigarette with a lighter and all that sort of thing. Would you compare?
No.
You wouldn't do that.
No.
You'd just think he's wonderful.